So question one, what does a typical day-to-day, typical day in the life look like for Andy Holloway? And then question two will be, what does that extensive football research look like?
Those are good questions. And it's a bit of a trick question because we are a seasonal podcast. So to that degree, we have, for those that don't know, like we record 5 shows a week from August through December. And that's kind of a lie as well because we record a Dynasty show. We record a Spitballers episode. We record a Footcast, which is premium content for our listenership. So we do about 8 shows. And so the regular season, it very much carries a standard day-to-day routine. We record at 8 in the morning. We post-produce, get that out. We work on the show doc for the next day, depending if there's games or another recording for that day. Like the season is very much, to some degree, the season is comfortable in the sense that every day is the same routine and you get to enjoy, like the content's produced for you by the NFL and then you get to respond to it. What makes the time that's a lot different is the off season where we record 2 shows a week from January through June. And that's very much our tech development cycle. So when you talk about kind of leaving tech, we got to preserve that portion of it where, the off season, we're recording 2 shows a week. That's also when we do our like statistical projections and player analysis. We do all of our college film work. We do a lot of our business planning. We do our app development, UDK improvements. We're surveying the Foot Clan for things that we can improve from their experience, making changes to our processes internally, which means employees. And so we do get a period of time during the off season that our day-to-day is very different from one period of time to the other. It's also when we do more of our traveling. In a couple of weeks, we'll go out to LA and meet with some different companies in terms of next steps for maybe the podcast or for video. And so I do enjoy the fact that there's a very different time of year and a different experience because we could not survive like 30 weeks of football. Like 18 of them is like plenty. But yeah, on a day-to-day basis, we've been blessed with like some really incredible human beings. Kyle Borgononi is like our head of content in terms of like show doc preparation and research. So we'll meet regularly with him and go over things that we want to include in our shows. But as the company has added really smart personnel, our jobs have changed. And it lets us focus on the things we love doing, which might be scouting during this time of year, building out our player projections. There's tons of different resources we utilize for that. I mean, a lot of them are public, common, research, Pro Football Reference and PFF and, probably about 10 others that we have, subscriptions to. But yeah, there's an ebb and flow to the years now that is pretty fun. And I really enjoy this time of year. I enjoy building the business side of things and building the products and then getting to debut them for the season.
I think it's fair to say that in many people's eyes.
Oh, and pickleball. We play some pickleball too.
Oh, Sorry. There you go. Yeah, I saw that you have a love for pickleball, and it's on the rise.
We're old now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, tennis is still better, but pickleball is definitely making its way.
You're not going to be able to find a place to play tennis soon, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's what's getting me worried about these pickleball enthusiasts is they're taking over, and I don't like it.
They are. I know. That's all the tennis players have a real angst about that.
Yeah. Andy, in many people's eyes, you alongside Mike and Jason have what many would consider, including myself, a dream job. You get to talk about football, you get to research players, you get to watch all of the games. I'm sure if you were to ask, anybody in high school or maybe middle school, hey, what's your dream job? I wish I could just watch sports all day. That I guarantee you that would be that was at least that would have been my answer back in high school. I wish I could just watch sports all day. Sure. So for many, you have a dream job. I'm curious, though, any downsides to your job that maybe people don't realize or any things that maybe you don't really love doing?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any profound complaints about, the situation that we're in and the fact that we get to do what we do. And we really try to keep perspective on that. But anything you do that was like a hobby and a passion, that becomes a job where you're responsible for people, where, the fisherman can go out and fish and catch 2 fish and go home. And if you tell him he's got to stay there for 10 hours, no matter what, every day, and then go home, maybe it's not as much of a pleasure. So there have been some things in terms of maybe individual passion for fantasy football that have changed over the years, just with doing the grind for 8 or 9 seasons, but not to a degree that like it's a real complaint. Just that it changes the nature of something that was a hobby, and anytime it's a business that changes some of the dynamic there, and every business has to deal with business things, whether it's financial or interpersonal and employee and decision making and integrating different personalities into leadership and making decisions around partnerships and brands you represent. And not that those things are necessarily burdensome, but they're also consequential, right? Like, and so they take up your brain. And I am a very like type A responsibility firstborn man. And like, so I take it very seriously, like what we do and how it provides for our employees. And so there's a weight to that you don't get if I was just clocking in and out of a job somewhere else. Like, I think there's a bunch of cliches about how overrated entrepreneurship can be, in the sense that you kind of are working 24/7, at least mentally. And so some of those things might be considered downsides. But again, I don't want to overplay them because I know how blessed we are. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to get to do what we do, and definitely don't take it for granted.